Welcome to today's episode of the Group X podcast. I'm your host, Tony Zanardo. If you're enjoying the podcast and would like to show your support, then head on over to the website and click on the Patreon link to find out how to become a show supporter. Today, I'll be talking to Josh Farmer, body attack trainer and presenter for Les Mills Asia Pacific. We talk about ways of teaching to who's in front of you and making it the best class for them. So grab your favourite beverage, sit back and enjoy the show. Josh, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast, mate, and spending some time with me for a chat. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Now, for those of you listening, Josh and I tried this 8 weeks ago, and we had nothing but chaos from both our ends. His mic wasn't working. Then I hit record and nothing went through, and then we did it via my phone and got to the end of it, and I sat down and listened to it, and there was a buzz all the way through, and I couldn't let the listeners listen to that. So here we are again, kicking it off. So
Round two.
Yes. I feel like I already know you, so I've got to pretend like I don't, and we'll run
that's
through
a shock.
So anyway, mate, tell us, how did you get into the fitness industry? Where did it begin for you?
Well, I guess I started off, obviously through school, I was always interested in like PE and things like that. Never really I wasn't super confident or, anything like that. So I didn't really engage much in like school, like sports or anything, but just PE, I always loved that. And then when I finished school, I was sort of looking for a outlet other than a PE class and come across a gym in just a local area.
Yep.
And signed up there. Probably the first few things, obviously, going into there was just like, I'd walk in, go to the cardio equipment and walk out like you find most people would do.
Yeah.
But then I think that's when I first met up with Brad, who was managing the club at the time at Zone. And he was always, or Brad, pumping up Les Mills as much as he could. And he's like, try this class. You will like it. It's like got me into a body pump class. And I started attending those a few times with some mates. And then probably, how long was I doing that for? Pump and RPM were like staples for me.
Yep.
After that, I was just like, oh, this is easy. I don't have to think. I just go in and just,
Yep.
follow along, and that's it. So that sort of was the first sort of introduction to Les Mills. And I started doing that probably, I was there for about, at that time, what was I, 18 at that time. So it was probably there for about 6 months to 12 months. And then just sort of stuff changed and the gym membership, I sort of stopped going there, started up with uni. And I think a couple of years later, another friend of mine, someone completely different, took me back to the same gym. And then obviously Brad was still there, same instructor crew was still there, and jumped back straight in. Probably was a bit more confident with that stuff then. So I gave a few more things a crack and started getting into some other classes like body attack and all that sort of stuff and giving those a crack at the time. And then probably, finished uni, moved up to Sunshine Coast.
Oh, wow.
When I finished uni. So I was sort of like, I'm done with that. So Adelaide, I'm sick of Adelaide. I want to change. So I moved for what I envisioned was going to be a very long time, but it was only 12 months. Got my teaching degree, moved up to Queensland, just found a teaching job at a primary school and was teaching there.
Yep.
And then first thing to try and find was another gym that was sort of built off the same thing that I was doing at Zone, where I could still go and do classes and do that sort of thing. And I found once I was training at Easy Fit up there with the team at that time. And I think small world, but I don't know, something happened where the owner of Easy Fit at the time was mates with Brad and knew how the setup of the gym at Zone worked, and they'd sort of collaborated and set theirs up because it was almost identical when I walked in. I was like, what the hell? This is like the same thing, but just coincidence, pure coincidence.
Yep.
And so I trained there, and then from there, kick-started the teaching career, I guess. I was attending Body Pump again and still obviously like doing more of the classes up there. Attack Grit at the time was out as well, so I was doing that.
Yep.
And then just sort of in conversation with people at the gym, come up with I was enjoying pump at the time, so I thought maybe I'd do my pump module first.
Yep.
Pump kicked off, I think, when I moved up there January, and I did my pump module in about August or September of that year.
Was that at Easy Fit? You did the training at Easy Fit?
So no, the training was in, I can't remember the name of the place. I remember it was about a 45-minute drive towards Brisbane.
Yep.
and then I did it at a club there with Karen Russell, and Jerome at the time
Yes.
was running the module as well. So
Yeah.
that was full. So yeah, it's
How
full module
was-
of
How
however
was
many it was,
how
16
was
or
that
something.
experience for you? I mean, you knew what the program was from participating, but you'd never done any pre-choreographed or exercise stuff where you're sitting down and someone's teaching you all of that.
Oh, that was, yep, it was a challenge, that's for sure. I remember I did, so in the lead up to it, the GFM that was working at EasyFit then, she's moved on now, but she at the time was preparing me for it. She goes, this is the track and this is your track. So we're going to go through it before you start. And this is timing and this is what, this is, and this is how you would manage that. And so we sort of started that up. And then, so I was sort of prepped a little bit to go into the first, there was only a 2-day module at that time. So it was either pass on day 2 or reset and come back to the whole 2-day module later on. So, yeah, that was stressful in regards to trying to figure out, just what to do, I guess.
Yeah.
And like you do things like body pump. I don't know if you were ever the same, but you do like pump or do the workouts for a bit, and you start getting used to like tempos and the exercises, and then you just like can like sort of remember the
yes.
Corey, even though you're not an instructor, sort of thing. So I was sort of got done that much that I was already sort of like preempting when changes were coming and things. But yeah, stepping into the IMT space and learning, how to actually get whatever's on the paper and teach it to people was definitely a struggle.
Yep.
I hated public speaking when I was in high school, and then even at uni, it took me ages. So obviously, teaching and that as a job sort of got me a bit more confident. With that. But yeah, definitely group fitness. That was another kettle of fish altogether.
It's interesting you say that. There's been some guests that I've chatted to that I could say it's probably a good chunk of them that have come on the show and chatted that have, in a similar way, they're introverted and don't have that. I suppose don't have that extroverted. You know what? Yeah, I'm going to walk into this space and I'm actually going to know what I'm doing. A lot of us that are instructors, I'm starting to work out now. We come from that place or that background that, as you said, public speaking isn't a big thing. I come from telecommunications where I was great in a boardroom with 2 or 3 other people. Shit, it's just like having a conversation. But when it came to getting on the bike, and because RPM was my first, when I got on the bike and started talking or started teaching, oh my God, even in the training module, I remember Pete Manuel saying to me, "Dude, just relax. Just relax. It's okay. Just get out what you're trying to get us to do." And I was seriously the deer in headlights moment, sitting there going, I have no idea. It's not a skill you're comfortable with. And I suppose what I'm getting at is I'm grateful that they actually teach us how to do that in initial module training, and they bring that side of us out, and where it is, day 1, have a go. Just have a go. What's the worst that's going to happen?
Have a go. It's not that big a deal. Day 2, pass.
But see, luckily when I did it, it was day 3, pass.
Yeah. Oh, it's day 3 now, and the new setup of the modules I find it completely different. But I remember like with that module for pump, like there was 16 people in there, and they had us split into 3 groups.
Yep.
So 3 of us were teaching back to back at the same time because we had the same track. So I was kind of grateful for that, because if I'd forgotten to say something in my presentation, the person behind me had just said it to their group, and I was like, "Oh that's right. Do that." So it was sort of like fixed that way. But at that time, we got 2 tracks in my module. So I had the chest track on the first day, and then lunges on the second day.
Yep.
So I was kind of wishing it would be the other way around, because that lunge track was disgusting.
What release did you train on?
87 for body pump.
Okay. Yep.
I think it was 87. Yeah, 87. But there's 1,000 times worse lunge tracks now. I go back and I do that, and it's like that's easy compared. But
Yep. No, I like hearing that, because it one it shows how the programs have evolved too. But if I recall, when I did mine, I got biceps and shoulders. The bicep track was Susan Renata. CNC Music Factory, going to make you sweat, going to make you move, and release. God, I'm going back here. Release 56 or 57, something like that. And the shoulder track was Mike McSweeney, I Like the Way You Move, by Body Rockers.
Yep.
And oh my God. You know, I'd got my fitness up, but walking into that or walking in, and Andrew Taylor was my IMT for pump, and I think he just snickered because he was my personal trainer at the time as well, and just sort of snickered and went. It's like, yeah, thanks, mate. And he's like, no, Tone, your weight needs to be heavier. No. You're going to be passing this. We're going to be doing this properly. You're going to role model this now. And well, the amount of times you do those tracks over the weekend, holy moly. Yeah.
Oh, the tracks and then the challenges. Oh my God, I would never forget that body pump challenge.
Wow. I'd forgotten about that. Actually, weirdly enough, no one's mentioned that to me in the chats that I've had so far. That was one of the things. Are they still, does the body pump challenge still exist? Is that still something that's...
I'm assuming it does. I don't train body pump, but I know there's a body attack challenge. It's slightly different to what I think they used to like. I've heard stories of people doing like the beep test in body attack and, you know, like all this other stuff, but now it's not like that anymore. I mean, it's still a challenge, but it's a tamer challenge, you know?
Yep. No, cool. So did you, you said you did pump for your first training. Did you pass?
I did, yes. I passed day 2. Yep. And then, but at that time it wasn't obviously certified. Like, so now day 3, obviously we pass and certify. Yeah. Whereas at that time it was pass as like trainee and then go away, do whatever, send us a video in however long, I can't remember. It took me, I think it took me about 6 months before I even sent it.
I think you had, from memory, I think it was up to 12 months in total, but they preferred you to try and get it done within 6 months.
Yeah. So I remember I did that, but I remember the very first class I shadowed, like I was standing up there in the squat track, and it actually wasn't even a squat track, it was the warm up, and the bar was on my back, and I could just feel my like leg shaking while I was at the front. I was like, I'm not ready to teach. But yeah, so passed, and then was nowhere near ready to start teaching a full class. I don't think I even taught my own full class for body pump until like 3 years into having trained. Like I did when I moved back. So I moved back to Adelaide in January of the following year that I'd done my module, and back to Zone, back to Brad's gym, and I was team teaching with a lot of people, and obviously the timetable was already set. So down there it was like, if you want to team teach, shadow, do whatever. So there was everyone was like open to that, and like I remember at that time it was just like packed house. So I remember some pump classes like 4 or 5 people on stage every week. So did that for a fair bit of time. So obviously it's a lot easier, I find, to build up the skill set when you're only teaching 1 or 2 tracks rather than having to remember 10. So thankfully I did that. But then I remember, certification time came around, and me and some of my other friends that I'd obviously had from the gym before I moved had all done their training the year before too. So I remember we all like sort of organized a day or a weekend to go, right, we're all going to film a class. We'll teach to each other. We'll go into the studio. We'll all put on the track. We'll just do like 4 pump classes back to back to back to back. Just film every single one. And I remember I did that, and I'm like a bit of a hoarder with all that sort of stuff. And I went back a few months ago, and I found that
you've still got it.
That video on my hard drive. My God,
excellent.
It was the worst thing I've ever seen in my whole entire life. Like, how the hell did I pass that?
It worked. You had 3 of the 5 ticked, so it was all good. This is the Group X podcast. So tell us the first class you taught. Can you remember? Can you remember teaching when you taught on your own? I mean, not when you were team teaching. When you taught on your own.
First class I took up, that was it was like 6 a.m. I don't think it was 6 a.m. I think it was a 5:30 a.m. class at another gym. Because they put out like, we need to get an instructor for this class, whatever. And I was like, yeah, I'm keen to teach. I'm ready. I think I'll be fine with it, whatever. So I started teaching that, and then quickly worked out that I'm not a morning person. But it was, I don't know. I feel like with teaching by myself, it was different of it shadowing and only having to worry about one. Like I feel like it was a lot more stressful trying to prep and plan, go like I'm going to have to get back to each track. But I sort of had at that time or at that point worked out for me to teach. I was going a lot by music and you know, once one track was finished, I knew that was over, and then the next track would start and the music would sort of guide me into what I needed to do for it. But it was just more so around I've got no one else to like guide me through if I make a mistake, if I do an error, whatever.
Yep.
These people are here watching my class, like
Yep.
what's going to happen if saying stuff's up. And it was a lot more stressful. But yeah, I had that class maybe for about 3 months.
Yep.
And then things changed with work and my times changed and shit.
Yeah, sure.
Around. I was like,
You just
and
went,
also, I wasn't loving waking up early, so I was like, sorry, but I think this isn't the right fit for me. And since then, I have stuck to, I'm not covering a class in the morning, I'm not teaching a class in the morning.
Yep.
It's not, you couldn't pay me enough.
Yeah. No, look,
Afternoons and night times, that's it.
I did, because I was PT, so I actually enjoyed the early mornings and getting up. And although it was, I used to see everyone do a 9 to 5, and I was doing a 5 to 9. Start at 5 in the morning and finish 9 at night.
Yep.
There were times where during the day, yes, I'd
Yuck.
go and lie down on the beach and have a snooze for an hour or two, which was great. But yeah, where I was in North Sydney, I also was back there again for 3:30 because I had schools around the area and I had teachers as PT clients. So it worked well that my business was working that way. But yeah, the early mornings towards the end when I stopped doing PT and stopped teaching, you couldn't get me out of bed that early. Lunchtimes, mid-mornings,
But
that
I
were
was
good.
like teaching. I mean, you just said, you were doing a lot more than that. But I was like, I remember teaching that morning class and then I'd go and teach for the full day.
Yep.
And then I would go to the gym again to
Yep.
do just like whatever workouts because obviously that was no class at the time. So I was only ever going there to participate or socialize or have a coffee for an hour at the front and then eventually walk my way down and do something. And then, I don't know. It was a big social event of the afternoons, but sort of just made the days longer too. And I was just, I was like, I think even now I'd like get out of bed at like 7:30, leave by 8 to go to work. Like,
And when you've got it down to a time,
fall into my clothes and
love it. You've got it down to a fine art of, okay, if I get up
That's
at 7:30, I can be out the door at 8. And look, I'm the same. There's Tuesdays, Thursdays where I go to the pool and do prehab stuff for my hip. I'm up at 5 o'clock to feed the dogs. The pool opens at 5:45. I'm getting there within like a minute to spare. You just time it. So you there, I leave there, I get back home, getting ready, out the door again by 7:15. You've got to do it.
Yeah.
It's got to be done.
Yeah.
It's life. I think it's life. I think a lot of people
That's
grab
it.
it. Yeah. So Pump was your first program. What was the second program you trained in?
Indeed. I remember finishing my pump module, and I think Karen asked me that question, and I said, I'm thinking CX. Like, that seems like it'd be up my alley. Like, mind you, I've been doing CX a few times at that time, so core.
Yep.
And then I sort of, that fell off the wagon a little bit. I didn't really do that much after I finished my pump module. And then, what was my next program? Grit. When I got back to Adelaide, I was doing Grit quite a bit and loved that and that sort of stuff. So Grit was the second module. Probably, I think, so maybe mid the year that I moved back, there was a Grit module in Adelaide that was being run. So I did that. So that was release 9. I trained on Grit.
How did you find Grit training? Because a couple that I've spoken to, and also when I went through and did it as well, it was so different to anything else that I'd learnt, and the way of yes, I was a PT, so I sort of grasped the concept of it all. But how did you find learning the choreography for Grit?
For Grit at that time, let me think back. I think they'd already brought in the countdown lady by then, so easy.
Yep.
But initially, to start off with, it was like when I was doing it, it was obviously the timing and all that sort of stuff. And I found that coaching the workout plan, being workout plan, not choreography, was a difference that was shocking to me. But also more so like I took the sciencey sort of stuff out of that module a bit more. But it's funny, I was thinking like on reflection about, when I've been listening to some of yours and listening to people talk about their first program and all that sort of stuff. It's funny to think that I didn't actually remember a lot of the pump module of what I thought I did.
Yes.
Until it got to the second module that you do. So you do the first one, and I remember like obviously you go through knowing now what I know about teaching. You would have gone through layer 1 coaching, layer 2 coaching, layer 3. It's all set. This is what it is. I don't remember any of that from Body Pump.
Yep.
I remember leaving Body Pump teaching going, I know that I've got to set people up. I've got to say this, and then I've got to say this, and then I've got to say this. But then I remember having a conversation with a mentor when I was teaching again, and she's like, "Oh, yeah, so you layer 1 cues," and I was like, "My what?
Yeah.
What are you on about?" And then spoke it. I was like, "Oh, right." And then I remember going into the grit module with a bit more of an understanding about that, so I could take in a bit more of it, if that made sense.
Yep.
But I was waiting for a challenge the whole time, and I was like, Troy Bayardi coached, like, was the trainer for me for grit.
Yep.
And I remember saying to him, like, "Where's the challenge for grit? Like, there was a pump challenge. Where's the grit challenge?"
Yep.
And he's like, "Grit is the challenge." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
I like that.
Cool.
That's honest. Grit, yeah, man. Grit's the challenge. We don't need to. Yeah, you're gonna smash yourself.
Right. But even that's another one that's like, as a program, has just shifted so much and is so much. Like, I'll go back to 9 now. I'll be like I said to you before about pump. It's just same thing. It's just crazy to think how the intensity rises and you just rise with it. You know.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So true. So.
But yeah. So that was the second module.
Yep. And what did you do after that one?
After that was body attack.
Yep.
And then after body attack, I did pump, grit, attack, combat. No, sprint was after that, and then combat was my last.
Okay.
Yep.
And where do you feel out of all those programs, where do you sit the best?
When I first was doing them, like a while ago, I would have said probably grit was where I was at in terms of I felt like I was teaching it okay. Pump at the time, I was loving pump, so I was like, you know, all the weight training stuff, the intensity of grit, all of that sort of stuff was where I was at. And I remember before I did my attack module, I was doing attack, and I liked the intensity tracks of attack, like the big peak tracks or the strength tracks or whatever. The aerobic tracks, I liked them, but I didn't really care for them much. And I remember when I went to sign up to my module, I remember saying to somebody, "I'm not doing those fluffy stuff in track 3. I'm not doing this. I would never teach that." And then someone's like, "Well, you have to." Yeah. And I was like, "Nah, not me. Not me. No way." But now, like, you know, I'll bring flavor where I need to bring flavor. I love that stuff. So it's sort of just changes where you teach. And now I don't teach pump anymore. So I've sort of given pump up because it was too static. For me, I needed to move off the spot, and I think attack sort of helped me with that. So if you ask me now, I would say more so attack and sprint, even combat are sort of my areas. I think there's just so, you know, dynamic and a lot more movement and still get the intensity where it needs to be, still have fun where I can have fun and all that sort of stuff. So it's just sort of, adding modules and shifting and learning to teach and that sort of stuff has sort of taken me down that path, I guess. Which is a lovely path to be on, I might say.
Yep. Let me ask you a question which I don't believe I've sort of asked anyone directly as yet. Why do you teach?
That's shifted quite a bit since I first started. When I first started, I started teaching because, I love the programs. I love teaching. I wanted to be able to teach the workouts and all that sort of stuff. All my friends had done it. So I was, team teaching with them, and it was just a great time and all that. And then you sort of develop and sort of shift, I find, and change. And now I find that I enjoy more so now than when I first started the connection that you have with the people that are in the room. And for me, it's sort of more so now about, the social aspect, not just with the people that you teach with, but more so the people that are coming to the class every week and that sort of stuff. So my attack class, for example, shifts. I've got 2 gyms that I work at now, and there's one that the stage is a lot lower to the floor, like you would see in like the normal group fitness studio, which I find is easier to connect with people. So that class is really fun and engaging, and I can, bounce off everyone, and it's just a great time, really. Whereas the other gym I teach at, the stage is quite high and the room's quite dark, so it's a lot harder to do that in that class. But that class I only have, like, sometimes there'll be 4 people in there, sometimes there'll be 8, sometimes there'll be 10. But even though they're still there, I find it is more so for me about engaging the people that are there and just having a great time, really, whether it be with 4 or 8 or 10 or 6. And it's just sort of, they've shown up for a workout. So let's train people. And that's sort of where that's sort of shifted now to, more so around, the understanding of, obviously not everyone is there for a super intense workout.
Yep.
Some people just want to come for the social aspect,
Yeah.
whereas some people want to come for this. And
Yep.
I enjoy being able to facilitate that space that allows people to meet new people and allows people to engage with other people for
Yep.
30 minutes of a class or an hour, whichever sort of format you're teaching. But yeah, it's sort of shifted to that context now more so
Yep.
for me, and has gone very externally focused rather than when I first started, more so internal around like developing my ability to coach and I teach because I can then, get more confident with being able to teach and stand up in front of people, and then sort of, shifted and changed in that context. But that's sort of where it's at the moment, I think, for me.
Yep.
Is what I love the most about it and why I keep doing it. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you for your honesty on that one too, because it's as a presenter and as a trainer, you're in front of a hell of a lot of people. And I think a lot of instructors these days want the glory of being, like I've got that time slot where, there's 30, 40, 50 people, however many people come in, I must be awesome. Well,
yeah,
you don't need to have 30, 40, 50 people in your class to be awesome. You can have, as you said, 4, 8, 10 and still be bloody awesome. Still be amazing. It doesn't mean just because...
Oh, it takes a lot more, I tell you.
Oh, God, yes. Yeah.
Smaller numbers, they seem to be harder to teach than the big ones.
Yeah. But that's...
But yeah.
I'll be honest, and I reflect back on when I was teaching, that the classes that I enjoyed the most were the ones that were a challenge. The easy ones, like my lunchtime Monday and my lunchtime Wednesdays, there was 42 bikes in the studio and 60-something people would rock up, and there'd be 18 or so people get the shits. They were fun. They were fantastic because the energy in that room was brilliant. But it wasn't only me, it was them. Yeah, together, community, we brought it. But where I really enjoyed was the Thursday night or the Friday night classes that didn't have those big numbers. Thursday night was late night shopping, Friday night in North Sydney, it's ghost town. You'll be lucky to get 10, maybe even 8 people in those classes. And I enjoyed, as you were saying, connecting with those guys. Having that moment with that small group of people that were there because, that might have been the only time of the week they were able to get in to train. And it didn't mean that I was going to give them a half-assed class. I'm going to give them as good a class as if they were there on that Monday or that Wednesday lunchtime.
Oh,
because they come to the gym to be there and be part of it. So I think as instructors, we've got to stay focused and not sometimes forget why we do what we do. And that was why I asked, just to try and get an idea of, why you actually teach. So I appreciate your answer, and I appreciate that. So thank you. This is the Group X podcast. Now,
I appreciate you asked that question because you didn't ask me that last time. You threw me a bit there. I was like, what? I know, I wasn't ready for that.
Love it. Now, how did you get to become a trainer presenter? How did that opportunity present itself to you?
So first up, I think it was a lot of little things that led to that sort of space. I think, like, initially, when Body Pump 100 was launched in Australia, obviously LMAP ran the Body Pump 100 competition, and you send in a track with you and a person that you normally teach with, team teaching and that sort of stuff. And a friend of mine who I still teach, Lisa Marie, who I still teach at the same gym with, her and I put in a video submission for Body Pump. We ended up winning that comp, and then got invited to shadow at Les Mills Live, or the Filex, in, I think it was Sydney, and I'm pretty sure it was one of the last ones that they ran as well. So we shadowed that, and then after that, probably the year after, I think the LMAP put a call out to any instructors that had done, I think you had to have done AIM 2.
Yes.
Equivalent.
Yep.
And obviously, got the result on that at the time. I think it was Elite or Advanced or whatever it was. Actually, I think they even got rid of that by that time, and it was just you have done AIM 2 for a program. So for me, I'd already done, at that time there was no AIM 2 for Grit and Sprint, so only AIM 1, and I'd done both of those.
Yep.
And Body Pump, so it was sort of a toss-up. You could apply for 2 programs and send in a video of a track for those 2 programs that you chose, and then from there they watched them in the office or whoever watched them. I don't even still know to this day who watched the videos, but and then you got invited to an audition day. So I ended up choosing Grit and Sprint were my 2.
Yep.
In my head, I was like, whilst I was enjoying teaching pump at the time and all that sort of stuff, the pump team I thought was quite big, and I didn't really see that track or that path for me for body pump, in terms of where I was at teaching at that time, and sort of just was leaning more towards the HIIT side of things. So I did grit and sprint, sent in an audition video for both of those, got invited to an audition day. So in Adelaide, that ran across 2 days. One group, there was, I think, about 22 of us.
Wow.
One group, or not 22 of 16? I can't remember. There was a lot.
Yep.
And I remember they ran it across 2. So one group did theirs on the Friday night, and then my group did ours on the Saturday. And it was pretty much all Saturday morning. And Dee and Amanda flew down to Adelaide, watched all the presentations, and, it was pretty much bang, teach, bang, teach, bang, teach, bang, teach. Thanks, see you later. We'll be in touch. We'll call you, don't call us, sort of thing. And then, so I taught, I remember that Saturday was wrecked. They had everyone for every program that was, trying out. So it was combat, jam. I think there was a few for grit, me, and probably out 3 or 4.
So how did that?
Few RPMers.
How did that process work though? Were you guys had to participate as though it was a class that you were?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yep. So we would do like presentation would happen. We would be on the floor. I mean, they say like you don't have to go all out on the floor, but you've got 2 people coming here to watch you potentially get on for a presenter spot on the team. So of course you're going to try and give it everything you got, even when you're not teaching.
Yeah.
So that was, it was a massive, massive day. So we did that. That finished up, and I think, I took my grit class was probably at the end. I'm pretty sure, my grit track. Sorry, and it was from memory, like one of the longer. Some of the tracks in grit, they're like some are 10 minutes, some are 4 minutes, some are 3 minutes, some are 2 minutes.
Yep.
This one was like a 6 or 7 minute track, so it was one of the bigger of the release.
Yeah.
And then sort of we finished. They'd gone away, done whatever they needed to do, and then we got either from that space we got invited to boot camp.
Yep.
So they picked people out and said, "Yep, we're going to do a boot camp weekend," and it was ran across the Saturday and the Sunday of the weekend. And then boot camp happened, and at that time we got told we were either on boot camp for this program or both the programs that we auditioned for. So for me, it was for grit and sprint. So I did on the Saturday a presentation for grit and sprint. On the Sunday, a presentation for grit and sprint. And then also we got given a section of the module that we had to learn and teach to everybody else as well as part of it. So I had a section of the grit IMT that I had to teach. It was layer 2 coaching. I remember it very, very well. But so we did that, and then the Sunday happened, and then on that weekend we got given feedback on our coaching and our teaching after we presented and that sort of stuff. And then I reckon it was about a month or so later they then sent out an email, and then either you got put on the team for the programs you tried out for, or the squad at the time, or from boot camp. I think it was one or the other. So you were going to be on for something, was either squad or team, wherever it goes, and then I'm pretty sure that's what happened. Maybe not. I think it was either you get put on the squad, team, or just thanks for your time. But so I ended up getting put on the team for sprint and grit after that. So that process took up probably from April to June. Sort of thing for the entirety of it. And so grit and sprint, first 2 programs, and then got put on the team straight away for both of those. And then I reckon it was maybe 2 months in, I got asked to be a sprint trainer and start the process for that. So then I ended up shadowing a few modules with AT. And did that sort of process and started learning the sprint IMT guide from back to front. But that was that process.
Okay. I suppose the question I want to ask you is previously, my understanding is that you were invited on the team to either be a trainer or a presenter. Now, I understand that moving these days, it is you are a trainer presenter, so it is you do both. Yep. So in that position, when you went through boot camp and you did all that weekend for boot camp, were you given are you a trainer or are you a presenter, or was it both for you back then as well?
No, at that time it was just to get on the presenting team. And I think even now there's sort of like Like you can be either a presenter or you can be a trainer presenter.
Okay. Yep.
At the time of the boot camp, I think it was just, go on for presenter team. And then after that, it was sort of like we've identified that you have the skill set, which I think teaching, as in the teaching job that I have, helped me a lot with that.
Yep.
And they said, you've got that skill set, so we're going to train you to be a sprint trainer. And at that time as well, I think there was only 3 or 4 sprint TAP members that were actually trainers for sprint.
Yes.
So there was obviously a need for that.
Yep.
And so I think that's why that sort of happened as well, which just sort of right time, right place for that to happen, I guess. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite over trainer or presenter?
I enjoy training more so than presenting.
Yep.
Especially now with the 3-day modules, I find that, you stress so much. And even like back then when you first start, you've heard it on the other podcasts you've had as well. People are like, I couldn't learn the module, or I stuffed that up and it was so stressful trying to, remember the content. But for me, that I was thankful that I had enough modules where I could take bits and pieces and team teach the content with Andrew Taylor at that time. I think I did about 4 or 5 modules with him, just like team teaching before I got signed off as a trainer. But I find that when I started teaching those by myself, the most stressful thing, and even back then, like the stressful part for me is day 1 is the important stuff.
Yep.
Day 1 is the stuff that, if they don't get this, then they can't pass.
Yes.
Or they're not going to get certified. So that's the sort of the area that I have to put a lot of time into making sure that it's going to be good.
Yep.
And then day 2 is still important, but a little more loose, can have a bit more fun with the connection and performance side of things. But and even the motivation layer 3 stuff. But I remember I wasn't so fazed about that with AT because I knew that if I stuffed up, he was sort of there, and I knew that he knew his stuff, so he'd fix anything that needed to be fixed if it was that bad. But when we first start doing it by yourself, I'll just put so much pressure on myself to make sure that I did that right.
Yeah.
But then also I find that the training side of things is sort of where I sort of get the biggest kick, because now you have 2 days where you teach all this stuff to people, and sometimes you leave day 2 going, I don't know if I taught them right, I don't know how the 8 weeks is going to go.
Yep.
What's happening here? Like, how are they going to come back? What am I going to do if they're not up to where they need to be up to? But now I really enjoy getting to day 3s. Probably day 3 the most actually is the best, because especially if you took the same group for day 1 and 2 and you teach the same group for day 3, then the shifts and changes that you see people make over that 8-week period is massive. And it just, for me, just feels like I've done something for them to help them sort of develop that skill capacity. And to be able to celebrate that on that 3rd day with the certification is the best. The best.
That's nice. Nice to hear. And I've said this a couple of times on this as well. I'm yet to interview and have a guest on that has been a show pony. I don't know, that sounds so bad to say, but I'm grateful that we don't have it in the team. I'm grateful that the team that is out there isn't that a person that's all just about, it's me, let's go. This is just me. This is all I want to do. Because they don't, from what I've seen over my time in the industry, those people have been around, but they just don't last long. They come and they go, just cool, you were there, you shone, and then all of a sudden, it's like a moth to the light, and bzz, gone.
Yeah.
So it's nice to hear that. Your driver behind it isn't about you, isn't about what I call the Insta fame, the Instagram type stuff. It's getting other people and helping other people to be able to help other people. Like I said that twice, but I did. It's helping other people in order to help other people, which is really, I suppose, what our industry is about and what we are doing. So, mate, well done.
But even now, like, I find that with the online, so obviously last year everything went online, and I started taking up the online sprint modules. Even now, the presenting side of things and the perks of presenting about getting to travel and things like that, I find are sort of I enjoy more meeting the other instructors in the other areas of the country rather than the presenting side of things. I mean, presenting is stressful. The teaching, make sure I'm doing the right thing, I'm not going to stuff up, whatever. But at least with IMTs in online or live, like, I've just enjoyed getting to the workshop and, meeting new people that are there, or people that I've already seen online that I can then connect with, and things like that, which sort of I think ties up as well. But yeah, definitely training for me is where it's at.
This is the Group X podcast. You've touched on something there which I was not going to go down, but I want to now that you brought it up. Online training.
Yep.
Very different to face-to-face, I'm assuming.
Yes. Yep.
In the way that your
yes
content...
and no. Like there's...
So I was going to say, the content's the same, but it's delivery that's obviously quite different.
Yeah.
How
so
do you run through all that? Can you explain how an online training module works for those that haven't done one, so we get an understanding of what it is?
The process is a lot longer in regards to the lead up to it. So obviously, there's a bit more work involved for both the trainee and us as trainers. So for the start, we'll give the trainees will get their tracks. They film themselves not even actually teaching anything, just riding through for me for sprint.
Yep.
They would participate in the track, send a video of that so we get a gauge of where their technique is at and things like that. And then they've got like some 5 key moves that they have to send a video of as well. So we go into the IMT already having an indication of, okay, this person, I remember they needed to work on this. So when I'm doing that section, I can focus on that.
So you get that before the module's even begun?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, wow.
So we'll watch that. So that normally will come probably about the Thursday.
Yep.
And then I'll sit down and watch on the Thursday night or Friday, and then just, make some notes so that I'm ready to go, ready for the weekend.
Okay.
And then, we kickstart into the call. There's 4 webinars over the weekend. So you do 2 on one day and then 2 on the other.
Yep.
And there's a bit of a break in the middle. So you do, I think normally they go for about 2.5 to 3 hours each.
Yep.
And then, it's a lot of Zoom calls and breakout rooms and chats and things like that. There's some sort of teaching tricks that you get from, trying to keep teenagers engaged in lessons that you can sort of bring in. So
Yep.
that's good.
Yep.
But yeah, so then that happens over the 2 days. On the second day, I think a recent addition was that they added in a masterclass for that.
Okay.
So there's like a 30-minute version of whatever program is being taught that you participate in.
Yep.
As part of it's just shifted. But I feel that obviously you can't do the drills that you would normally do in a live module.
Yep.
In some context, so they've changed a little bit. But so then they finish the day 2, and then after that they have to submit. There's a lot of teaching practice over those 2 days where you go into breakout rooms and teach to one other person, set the microphone up, follow along, all that sort of stuff. And then after day 2, then the next step is to go out, teach the track and film it, and then send that off. And then the next weekend, by that time, we would have watched the track, done the feedback form, and then we give video feedback recorded on Zoom that gets sent to the trainee, and then they get that for however long they want to keep it for, I guess.
Okay. Yep.
And then they go on forward from there to the 8-week as they normally would, and then day 3 is always a live day 3.
Okay. Yep.
Yep.
Are there more? Would you say there's more regional instructors jumping on board with that now, or are they still like, metro or close? I suppose because I look at it, I think from my time back at Les Mills was always a big issue that we had with regional clubs having to come to training. It cost them close to $3,000 by the time that they'd left home on a Friday, gotten back on a Sunday night or a Monday morning from flights, accommodation, all of that kind of stuff. It's not just the $650 or whatever it is for the module training. There's a hell of a lot more in there. I'm assuming when I say this, but I'd say that there's probably would be more regional instructors that are jumping on with training because it's become more affordable and easier for them to be able to do. Yes, okay, they've still got to come and travel for day 3 and go somewhere for day 3, but it's easier just to go for one day than it is an entire weekend.
Yeah, but 2 times as well. So like if you
if it's a 3-day
module, you're traveling for the 2 days plus the single. I've found that. I find that in some areas where some programs aren't as big. So, for example, for us in Adelaide, Body Jam is not massive.
Yep.
And my brother did his Body Jam training online, and then they ran the day 3 here with lower numbers. But at that time, they can fill that first 2 days with people from wherever they need to, which I think it makes it more accessible in that context.
Yeah.
because, you know, I've had people from the last sprint module I did was it sprint? No. Yeah, it was. The last sprint module I did, I had people from, you know, a couple from New South Wales, a couple from Western Australia,
Yep.
a couple from, I think there was one lady from Alice Springs who did hers. So there was just, I think it makes it more accessible for sure to people who don't necessarily have the capacity to travel for 2 weekends, like you say, or whatever else, which is good because it's sort of getting more sort of training being able to happen in those areas where sometimes numbers might not, or, you know, modules might not come up for months on end. Yeah.
It's I noticed that as well because just recently I've started advertising the Les Mills training modules on the groupex.com.au website, and I'll go through an update of them Fridays to have a look what trainings are on. And one thing I've noticed is that the online modules, they'll advertise them for all different states, but obviously they're open to all states because they're online. It's just where the day 3 is going to be coming up for them somewhere to be able to go to do that as well.
Yeah.
So, no, cool. I appreciate the insight on that as well. I'm sure some of the listeners will understand or will appreciate getting a bit of an understanding on it as well. Is it hard to engage people?
Online?
Yeah. I mean, you know, face to face, you can tell so much more face to face. When you're sitting in a room with someone, there's body language, there's expression, there's all that kind of stuff. It's quite hard when you're just on a screen and, you know, you're sitting there, but you've got 8 or 10 people faces that you're also trying to look at. It's hard to I find it hard in some online meetings that I was having throughout the COVID lockdown, you know, with agencies throughout the world and stuff. It's a challenge in that way. How do you find that, and is there a way that you engage people that you've got a little trick to share with us?
I guess it's sort of it definitely is tough. I think the biggest thing, I guess, is trying to break it up so it's not all like just content.
Yeah.
Oh, no, webinar 1 is done.
Yep.
So like trying to, you know, some of the tricks that we do at school, sort of brain breaks and things like that. So stopping for a second and, you know, let's energize, do this, or, you know, throw a few quiz questions out there, or get people in breakout rooms and talking to different people rather than just setting the same rooms all the time. So you're always coming back in with, you know, Josh and Tony for round number 5, sort of trying to make it sort of more engaging that way.
Yeah.
I guess is sort of the way that I've tried to tackle that, but it's definitely tough.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Hey, now I want to ask you a question because I know that from our conversation last time that you have also done filming. You've been on a masterclass.
I have.
Tell us a little bit about how that opportunity came up for you and which program that it was.
So that was for Body Attack. Has been for Body Attack twice now, actually. But I remember I did not see it coming at all, by the way. So I initially, if I could have applied for Body Attack the very first time I'd done it, when we did the team trials, I would have 100% hands down done that.
Yeah.
But at that time, there was no, I hadn't done AIM 2 for Attack, so I couldn't do it. By the time, probably about 12 months later, they sent out an email saying, if you're already on the team, you're interested in being considered for another program, send us a video, let us know, and, you know, we'll see what happens. So I remember sending in a track for Attack at that time. And I was like, yep, cool, doing it. And I sent in, actually, I think I sent 2 tracks. I think I had to send it to Steve. And Steve watches the tracks, and he goes, yep, cool. And then got put on the team for that. I think Rachel had a big part in that too, actually. I think she also watched the tracks and said, this guy, yes.
She might have done.
So thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much. But so she and Steve obviously put me on the team for... You still there?
Yeah.
Yep. She and Steve put me on the team for Attack. And then I think it was like, I hadn't even presented a workshop yet. I got a phone call from Steve and he said, so I need you just... Oh, no, I think they sent out an email came out saying filming's happening in Sydney and it's a very quick turnaround. So you need to, you know, hurry up and get your tracks submitted in if you want to be considered for a shadow or teach. So I was like, okay, let's give it a crack. You know, maybe if I get up to shadow, that'd be sick. Cool. Sent the track in. Steve sends it back and goes, so we're sending this track in to Lisa, and I'll let you know. And then obviously I think things progressed there, and he ended up calling me back saying, "Yep, so they've watched your video and you're presenting Body Attack 108." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Do you mean presenting like shadowing or what?" And he goes, "No, on the microphone." I was like, "Oh shit." Okay, so that all happened before I'd even presented at a workshop, and I was like, "I'm not ready for that. No way. Are you joking me?" And that was so that actually shook me. Like I was so surprised by that, and I was shitting myself as a result. But yeah.
Like 108, was that
That's sort of how that happened?
Was that the one in Sydney? I'm hopeless with numbers of releases. Was that Sydney?
Yeah, that was a Sydney release.
Yep.
So I did that in Fox Studios. So that was in front of heaps of people.
Yeah.
And
A couple of 800 or 900 people or whatever it was, or 1,000 people. I can't remember how many people were there, but there was there was a ton of people there that night. It was I'm sure that some of our listeners were there. Hopefully some of them were there. Mate, you did well as well. I'll just give you
Thank you.
a bit of a plug there.
Thank you.
I was sitting there watching you guys.
Well, I must have done something right because they asked me back for a second one.
Yes. I was sitting there and just mesmerised with the energy in the room because obviously, I was being the proud husband and up the back there cheering Rach on and everything. And it was nice to actually see a filming done as well because I'd never had the opportunity to travel to New Zealand in the past when they used to have, open the masterclasses and that kind of stuff. I'd never gotten a chance to get over to see anything. So it was really good to see that. But when you guys came out on stage, the energy in that room was phenomenal. You brought it. All of you brought it. All of you that were teaching.
Standing on stage and I remember standing on stage and Lisa was introducing everybody and they had to do that take. I think they did it like twice.
Yeah.
But I was sitting there and I was like just smiling and I was like, what's going on with my face? Shit.
No, it was good. How was that
experience? Yeah, that was epic.
Man?
And it was good. That was intense. So I think we all got to Sydney. For Attack, we'd sort of seen and worked with and listened to the release for maybe a few days before we got there. And then because of the club licensing and things like that in Australia, we couldn't run rehearsal classes.
Yep.
So we did rehearsals, but it was like closed. So it was only the presenting teams for each program teaching to the mirror. And I remember I was always like, even in IMT, when you go and they're like, "Oh, here's your track, go and do teaching practice. And I want you to practice saying your script out loud into the mirror." I never did that. I hated it. I would never do it. I'd just nope, I'm just going to listen to it, run through it in my head, just sit here quietly. That's fine.
Yep.
And then obviously you can't do that when Lisa Osborne's in the room and you got to teach your track to everybody. So I was like, that was uncomfortable, but a good uncomfortable.
Yep.
So we did that. I think maybe in the lead up, probably we got there on the Monday and then filmed on the Friday. So we did rehearsals quite a bit of time, maybe sometimes twice, probably in the day.
Yep.
And then built up to eventually the Friday. But that was just that whole experience was just epic to share with as many people on the LMAP tap team as possible at that time. It was just something else.
Yep.
Really, really, really good. And that the Attack team was unbiased, but we were great. Great to work with, great group of people, and just the energy was next level. It was good. Yeah, really good.
So you said that you'd done it twice. When was the second time, and how was that experience?
Yes, so I did 108, and then from there, what happened next? I didn't hear anything really from that October filming. I think it was October, and then at the start of the following year, Les Mills Live happened in Brisbane, and Lisa came back, and I got an opportunity again to teach Body Attack 108 with a lot of the people that were still at that filming event there, and sort of share that experience a second time around, which was really good. So worked with Lisa a bit of time there in rehearsals and things like that. And then following on from that, I got the opportunity it was weird. I got a WhatsApp message from Lisa, of course, saying "Hey, are you interested in trialing a release?" And I was like, "Yeah." That's sick. Cool. And then all of a sudden she's FaceTime message, like calling me, and I was like,
Okay.
I think I'd just woken up at the time because time differences or whatever.
Yeah.
And she goes, yep, so really keen to work with you for this, and we'll do this and this will happen, and I'll send you the release and some music, and it'll change and we'll play around with it. But so I was working on, I think the first one I did was 112, where I was on the trial team for that, and then from there just kept, trialing, giving feedback, engaging in calls and sort of feedback videos. And then, I woke up to a message one day saying, hope you're ready to film. And I was like, what?
Sorry, what?
Yeah. Okay. When, how, what's this happening? And she goes, and that was for Bodytech 114. So then that was in Auckland. So I flew to Auckland for that one and taught that. I can't remember what year it was now, obviously. Last year. So I filmed 114 in Auckland, right in the middle of COVID. So everything was sort of dialing down with that. And then I remember at the time of me having to leave to go to filming, Melbourne, I was supposed to get a connecting flight, Adelaide to Melbourne, and fly to Auckland from there. But then Melbourne was in lockdown because there was an outbreak there. So that was not going to happen. And Sydney at the time had just gone into lockdown too. So that was also not going to happen. So the only option for me was a direct flight the day before I was supposed to leave from Adelaide to Auckland. I think there was one. And so the office, LMAP office, were like, yep, cool, we'll get you on that flight. No worries. Get ready to leave. We're leaving tomorrow. Yep. And then, so I changed flights, got to Auckland. And then while I was in Auckland, Adelaide went into lockdown. So that was nuts.
Yep.
So I was in Auckland. They're like, oh, you're going to be able to get home? And I said, well, you guys don't have any cases here. So surely I can get back. I just can't go the other way. But I didn't know at the time. So filming week was happening. We're doing rehearsals and everything like that. I'm trying to keep up with what's going on when I get back home, if I can get back home.
Yep.
And so that just sort of fell in place, right time, right place again. Very lucky like that. And so then
how was that experience in Auckland compared to Sydney?
Very different. So obviously over there we could do live rehearsal classes, and it was different in regards to, I found that the feedback and reflection on teaching was a lot more than what we sort of went through in Sydney.
Yep.
We would teach obviously to the mirror, and you'd get some feedback and make tweaks to your script and all that sort of stuff. But when I went to Auckland, it was very much like condensed. So I think we did maybe 4. I got there on the Saturday, and I think rehearsals and everything started for us for Attack on the Sunday, and we filmed on Wednesday.
Oh, wow.
So for us, we were doing on the Sunday, I think we did 1 class, and then the next day, some days we did like back-to-back classes, like the 45, and then we'd go to another gym and teach the 30, and sometimes I think there was a 55-minute there. But for me, I had all the tracks that were in every sort of format of the workout anyway, so it didn't matter. I was on every single time. So I think sometimes it was intense. So we'd film that, take it back to LMI, and then we'd watch the tracks back, and a lot more feedback around fix this needs to change, we need to do this, we need to do this. And it was more I guess with a smaller group as well, made it easier to sort of dissect coaching and reflect and get coached from Lisa a lot more than what we did in Sydney. So that was made me definitely think more critically about the way I teach. But also, I think the biggest thing when Kylie was doing the welcome meeting was, the biggest focus that we want to come through this release is, the message of teaching from your strengths. And for me, I could sort of know that a strength of mine was going to be the tracks that I had were all the powerful sort of tracks that I felt like I sat naturally in anyway. So it was about trying to figure out what I could do to sort of develop as an instructor for that time that I was there. And for me, that sort of fell more around the layer 3 coaching / performance section, where I remember the first time I taught, I will never, ever, ever forget the analogy that came out of Elisa Osborne's mouth. She said to me, you're like a firecracker that gets lit, and you start really, really good, and then it sort of just fizzles out and goes this way. Doesn't actually explode. And I was like,
thanks.
I don't know how to take that, but it's up here now. So now I know that whole week it was that needs to be bigger. This needs to be bigger. This
Yep.
needs to be bigger. And then I'd like got to the point. I remember I messaged Rachel, I think, at that time, and I was contacting Eve as well. Eve was like messaging me. She was real supportive, and Brayden, and I was like, she's saying this to me. Eve, she's telling me that I need to go big, but I feel like I can't even talk now. My voice is like hurting that much. And then I was like, I don't know what she wants. And then like we ended up teaching. It got to a point where I think the day before it was the feedback changed to, all right, now we're here. Now let's dial it down a little bit. And I was like, oh my God. But then it sort of like penny dropped for me. I was like, all right, so she's pushed me to this level.
Yes.
So then now I can see, all right, this is where I can go. This is where I need to go. But also if I need to go back here, I can do that and shift around, which, yeah, that was the biggest takeout for me for that weekend, personally for me as a teacher. But definitely a lot more in depth around like the way that we coach and things. I've got a lot more out of that, but also found the intensity of filming week over there was just next level, which,
This is the Group X podcast. Where was it filmed at? Was it in Studio One, or were you offsite in an actual studio?
Nah. So we filmed probably about 45 minutes away in I can't even remember that. I think it was the Vodafone Arena or something. It's a big building, just looks like a pirate ship, which was quite fitting because that release, the track 9, was like a real piratey sort of arr song, and I think so it was funny. It was funny rocking up to that studio or that sort of arena, and it was just literally looked like a pirate ship on the front. But so that wasn't Studio One, but yeah.
So how many people were you teaching to? Like, did you have people in front of you?
That one was about 20 to 30, I think, instructors were in that class.
Okay.
It was a lot smaller, which for me, I found a lot more when it eventually came to actually filming, a lot more comfortable than Sydney, because it was felt more like a class. Obviously, the cameras don't make it feel like a class, and they're a lot more obvious in a smaller one than that little red dot at the back of Fox Studios when we filmed there. But so it was a bit more intimidating in that regard, where you like no matter where you look, there's cameras and beams and whatever else. But I felt like it was more for me. I was more confident in being able to teach it because the group was a lot smaller, and it felt more like an actual class that we were teaching to, which was better.
Did you have to teach differently because it was going to be a virtual recording as well as a normal education recording?
I think a few of the rules around teaching were the same. Like we weren't allowed to, because of the music licenses and stuff. I think there was some things where you can't sing lyrics, or you can't use this, and it was very much more so like sort of directing into the camera for that. Obviously, at that time, LMOD or Lesmos Plus now has gone, through the roof in regards to content for that. So it was a little bit more different for that in regards to being able to, or having to be mindful of that's what's happening, as well as it being an instructor sort of toolkit. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Hey, couple more questions, and then we'll wrap it up, because I want to be mindful of your time. What are you doing now? So as in, I know you're talking to me. That sounded like a really stupid question.
What are you doing now? What are you wearing? What kind of Zoom call is this?
I forgot to tell you, these are all going on YouTube too. No, what are you doing now? As in, I know you're school teaching. I know you're teaching school. You're teaching classes as well. How many classes a week are you teaching at the moment?
I've pulled back a little bit. So I only teach... The only program I teach 2 of a week is attack. That's a 45 and a 55. And then I team teach combat on a Tuesday every now and then. But that's, again, similar to what I was doing pump before, where I was teaching pump but with someone in someone else's class. So that's with Danny Beatty. So her and I'll talk with her tonight. And then I'll teach, my attack class on a Wednesday, and then I'll teach grit on a Thursday and sprint on a Friday, and that is me done for the week.
Cool.
So pretty much, one of everything except for attack.
Yep. And how many modules would you be doing at the moment per month? Like, is there a lot of work on in the module space?
Not a great deal. Obviously, COVID time, there was heaps of online sprint modules that I was doing. That's sort of quietened down a little bit now. So I've got 2 modules, one for attack, one for sprint, coming up in a few months. Locally, but there's a lot less travel for modules for IMTs, because I think there's more trainers in states now, So yeah, so for me now, just as sort of I've just shifted into a new job this year at work, so learning that, but then also, still trying to just have a great time in classes that I'm teaching at. Really is where I'm at for that.
Yeah.
Currently, I am in the process of trialing 118 for body tack and doing that feedback process for that. But yeah, that's my schedule at the moment.
Cool. What does the future hold for you?
Keep doing what I'm doing. In terms of teaching, I enjoy teaching. I enjoy, still engaging in classes and that sort of stuff. In regards to training side of things, I think the biggest thing for me at the moment is I've done one body attack IMT live. So for me, it's more so around going back and looking at and refining that, because it's so few and far between doing those modules, which is like relearning it over and over and over again. But that's sort of where I'm at for this space at the moment. But at the minute, I'm just content where I'm at right now.
Cool.
It's good. I'm happy.
Yep.
Sort of, finding challenges where I can in regards to, so I'm putting a bit more energy into combat now that I've given up body pump. So pump just sort of wasn't servicing me in terms of I was doing the workout, but I wasn't enjoying teaching the workout.
Yep.
So it just came to a time where I said at the start of the year, nope, combat is where I want to put a bit more of my energy into and teaching that. So
sweet.
Ditch one, pick up the other one and see what happens, But that's where I'm at.
Cool. Now, two more questions I'm going to throw at you. One, does our industry need to change anything? And if so, what?
I think it's just the industry as in fitness industry, you mean?
Yeah, it can be. Doesn't need to be Group X specific, but it's just I'm just asking everyone to get an idea on where they're at, what you guys are seeing that I might not be seeing.
I think that definitely like the online space is obviously taken off massive. And I think that whilst, yes, like we spoke before about the online modules and things, I think people still need that connection for like the live face-to-face experiences. So from a trainer perspective, like the online and live, I see as both having equal sort of weight, I guess, in that space. For classes and sort of getting people moving, I think that definitely everything with people being more accessible to online platforms now, it makes it a lot easier to reach people without them having to actually come to a gym. So I think maybe even changing and shifting the way that we can teach or instruct or train people at home is different, but still encouraging the connection for them to still come back is I think an important part there, where there's some element of connection to club or a space where they might not be able to get there yet, but it might be like a building block into that area. For me, I think that's sort of where I'm at with that.
I agree with you on that one. I think
say all the time, nothing beats live, but a lot of people still prefer to work out of their home, and that's okay. But you can still connect with people like we are here.
That's what I was going to get at. I believe that our industry needs to look at doing live online classes. We were doing it during COVID, and all of a sudden that seems to have stopped. And now we've just gone to Les Mills Plus or whatever platform is out there that people are using. There's no reason why a gym can't put a camera in their studio when you're teaching that is positioned on the roof or wherever it may be, that is streamed to a private online platform that your members can jump in and access. As an example, I might not have been able to get to your class tonight at 6:30, but I was able to get home in time where I was able to, I've got to look after Leah, right, Leah? Hang out and watch TV. Dad's just got to duck downstairs to do an attack class, whatever it may be. If that opportunity is there, that's where I believe that we need to hone in on. I don't think there's any clubs out there there's none that I know of that are doing it well at the moment. But I strongly believe that is a market or a channel that we should be looking at as an industry to work on being able to service our members in a different way online.
For sure.
There's a lot of talk at the
Agreed.
moment that a lot of classes that I'm chatting or clubs that I'm chatting to, attendance is down. They're just not coming in. How do we fix it? There's an opportunity straight away, and it doesn't need to be world class straight away. We can improve on it as we go. It's a space that we as an industry haven't really done before. I know of a couple of programs out there. A State of Right ASOR is one of the programs I've seen that's doing it really well in the cycle space. But there's not many others that are doing it where it's done well at all. It
sort of seems like it was like, COVID happens and everyone's in lockdown, so we can only do it by doing online. So let's do that and put energy into it. And then now sort of clubs are open again, and it's like, oh, well, we want you to come back in here. So we're not going to do that online now. We'll just do it. Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be by
So
Zoom.
if it's not live, it's not at all. But
admittedly, there was a lot of crap that went down during COVID. A lot of crap classes that were thrown out there, and the experience probably wasn't what it should have been. But it was new. We've never. The fitness industry is not gamification. We don't know how to do that. That's all brand new stuff. But I think if we look at the gaming, the gamers that are out there and how they interact with each other online, there is an complete space there that the industry can really look at and take on board. I think it's something that we need to look at. We know COVID's never coming back. We've all decided that COVID's never coming back, and we're not dealing with it anymore. But something else may come in the future that's going to throw us into some form of lockdown. But COVID can piss off. That's gone. That's
100%. It's just be prepped and ready.
Yeah. Cool. Then my last question I'm going to throw at you is, what bit of advice can you give to instructors that might be listening who want to improve or look more into a trainer-presenter role?
I think sort of two things for me sit with that question. First one is from my experience, I think having the time to, not rush into, finishing day 3 and going straight into teaching a class, and I've got a class lined up for the week after, so if I don't pass, I need to get there, and sort of rushing into getting all that sort of stuff done and not really taking the time to refine the basic stuff first, I think is probably the biggest thing for me. And I'm quite grateful actually that I didn't start teaching straight away and that it took me 3 years to eventually teach a class, because I think that that's sort of the stepping stone that sort of helped me refine the way I teach and find sort of my own authentic way to do that, which I think has sort of helped me become a better teacher.
Yep.
And then the second thing would just be just making sure that, like you touched on before, just that why and the reason why you do what you do is sort of authentic and from a place of wanting to, be it connect with people or see people grow and help people follow the same path that I took, or help them pave their own or whatever it may be, but just have that reason of why you're doing it and what the reason behind it is, and sitting into that space a lot more, I think, is probably the two biggest. So yeah, prep, do the work, don't rush doing the work. So for some people it might take 12 months, for some people it might take 3, 4, 5 years, but I think that if you're doing it and you're teaching because you love teaching and doing it anyway, and the presenter stuff is an added bonus. But at the end of the day, I've had conversations with Eve about this before, and it's like the presenter stuff is good, and to do it is we're very fortunate to be able to do that, and lucky that we're on the team. But at the end of the day, presenting happens 4 times a year. If you're not a trainer, you're only presenting 4 times a year. So what are you doing for the rest of the time? And that's the connection stuff that's happening inside clubs and on the membership base. And I know that like members on the floor don't know what a trainer presenter is. So regardless of what standard I'm at or where I am or what level I'm at, the class that I'm delivering for those people is literally just about now connection and engaging with people. So having that sort of why and reason why you do what you do is probably the biggest and the most important, I think.
Awesome. Josh, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming on and having a chat and sharing your life and your experiences with us, mate. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. And I'm sure that everyone that's listening appreciates it too, mate. So thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank you for having me. Now, don't call me in 8 weeks and say, it didn't record. We need to do it again.